How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? We are broadcasting from the heart of the great salt desert of Utah, bringing you the wind-up of one of the most thrilling spectacles these old eyes have ever seen. We're sitting here at the side of a 10-mile circle, where since yesterday morning, an automobile has been flashing around, chasing a new all-time speed and endurance record for enclosed stock cars. The goal is just a few hours away, and we want you to be in at the finish. The car which is furnishing the thrills is a Chrysler Airflow Imperial, with Harry Hartz behind the wheel. Yesterday at 7 o'clock in the morning, Harry started feeding the gas to this big Chrysler, and he and his relief driver have been at it ever since. They're out to run at least 2,000 miles in 24 consecutive hours. Since the Chrysler started its whirlwind journey around this giant merry-go-round, it has swept the boards clean of all official speed marks from 1 to 12 hours. And this isn't a racing car, no sir. It was picked right off the floor of a Chrysler sales room by officials of the American Automobile Association and brought out here under their constant supervision. Every vital part of this car bears the seal of the AAA, certifying that this is a strictly stock automobile. Exactly like the Chrysler Airflow Imperial Coupe you can buy at any Chrysler dealer. Uh-oh, the Chrysler is coming in for gas, mobile gas. Come on, step lively there, men. The precious seconds are ticking off even while the car stands still. And now back on the track for the last sprint. The 24-hour deadline is a matter of minutes now. One by one, the Chrysler has shattered the proudest records of its class. That takes power, glorious power, and it takes something more, airflow design. Its power is converted into speed rather than wasted fighting empty air. Here's the last lap. The pit crew goes hysterical. The record, all records up to 2,000 miles in 24 hours are in the bag. The Chrysler ran a marathon and ran it at sprinting speed. And now a big hand for Harry Hart and his driving mate. They sure earned it. And just by the way, how about a hand for that Chrysler Airflow? Believe me, it has earned a cheer too. Let's take a look at the route covered in this transcontinental jaunt. From Los Angeles, the trail led through the mountains and over the desert to Salt Lake City. Then across the Rockies and over the vast plain country through Wyoming, Nebraska, Iowa, across the Mississippi into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, and back into the mountains again through Pennsylvania. At last the goal was reached, New York. And here is Harry Hartz, starting away on his new mission, out to prove that although this Chrysler Airflow has a great appetite for speed and punishment, it's no gasoline hog. High-Speed Harry has abandoned his title for the moment to take over the role of Mr. Average Driver. The speed is maintained around the 50-mile mark, even as you and I would drive on a leisurely tour. Throughout this 3,000-mile run, he's hitting every variety of road from concrete superhighways, smooth as a billiard table, down to gravel roads, good, bad, and indifferent. Wherever they are, he takes them as they come. The car covers all sorts of driving conditions, too, from the chilly, rarefied atmosphere of mountaintops to the stifling, soggy air of the desert lowland. This transcontinental run also was sanctioned, supervised, and certified by the contest board of the American Automobile Association. Every mile of the journey, an official of the AAA sat beside the driver of the car. At every stop for gasoline, this 3A representative checked the amount of mobil gas and mobil oil delivered to the car. And here's the car at the end of the triumphal trip across the country. Let's look at its record. During the entire 3,072 miles, it averaged better than 18 miles to the gallon of gasoline. And as for oil, why even mention it? During that entire distance, only 2.5 quarts of mobil oil were consumed, and the crankcase never was drained. The entire operation expense from coast to coast was less than $35. And here is Mr. Chrysler congratulating Harry Hart on the records made. The Chrysler Airflow has demonstrated that it is not only champion of all fine cars in performance, but the champion in economy as well.
Testing track, reminiscent of the arena of ancient Rome, this modern gladiator will be put through a series of the most dangerous and thrilling exploits ever attempted. The judges are hired boiled state troopers. and they're really going to find out whether this car can take it. The first test is braking efficiency, probably the most important of all from the standpoint of accident prevention. And they're going to do it the hard way. These boys don't fool. The brakes are supposed to be waterproof, and they're going to find out. He soaks the road, too. And here we have, in effect, our own private cloudburst. What a swell spot for a skid when he slaps on those brakes at high speed. Here he comes, and here I go, behind a nice big tree. I'll be seeing you. Say, Sarge, you must have a lot of confidence in those brakes.
Mm-hmm. Chrysler hydraulic brakes.
Right, and the grip of those Goodyear tires certainly adds a margin of safety. Now they're setting the stage for that dreaded motoring catastrophe, a tire blowout. And just to make sure of a thorough job, old Dead-Eye Don is going to use a shotgun. As the car speeds down the track, our sharpshooter draws speed, and you'd naturally expect a dive for the ditch, but the car continues without a waver. What balance and steering control. Look at that hole. Enough to sink a battleship. Time was when such a catastrophe would have thrown a car out of control, but not this baby. Ah, what a picture. All right, siege gun, burn in your fast one. Aha, the duplate safety glass turns back even the pitcher's bullet delivery. True, the glass cracked, but it did not shatter and fly like ordinary glass. Make a note of that, too, in choosing your next car. See that it has duplate safety glass, not only in the windshield, but in all windows as well. Well, what now? Uh-oh, look who's here. The boy wonder is in again. Don't tell him, folks. Let him figure it out himself. Hey, not that way. Well, Rollo, I hope you're convinced. And just by the way, that was a rather convincing demonstration, too, I'll say. They call this the strongest motor car in the world. And believe me, this chap is going to find out. Strapped in his seat, he's going to deliberately turn the car over while traveling at high speed just to see what happens. Personally, I haven't that much curiosity. Here he comes, trying to do the very thing that every other motorist in the world is trying not to do. He swings the wheel over and, whoa, wait a minute, that car doesn't want to turn over. Well, now let's try it once more. A final burst of speed. He swings the wheel, there it goes. Wow, a complete double somersault, and lands on its feet nimble as a cat. Uh-oh, he's stuck. Come on, boys. Nope, he pulls out under his own power. I'll say that car deserves a cheer. Look at him go, as smoothly as only floating power can be. Well, what do you know about that? Even after that double flip-flop, the doors open and close easily. The glass in the windows hasn't even cracked. Of course, I hope you never take a tumble like that. But if you do, be sure you have the protection of an all-steel body built with the strength of a battleship. Do you wonder what gives this car the rugged strength to stand up under this pitiless punishment? Look closely, folks, and learn how the world's safest motor car body is built. In this car, you ride inside the frame instead of on top of it, for the frame is an integral part of the body. Let this husky show you the great strength of even a miniature model of this body construction. He tips the scales at 200 pounds, yet the model carries that load easily without distortion. The sturdy steel girders of this bridge-type frame are given added strength and rigidity by the steel body panel, and the entire structure is welded together in one solid all-steel unit. There's inbuilt stamina for you. Why, this car would stand up even if you pushed it off a cliff. Oh, you don't believe it, eh? Well, just follow me. Now, if there are any skeptics among you, prepare to be convinced. Here we are at the old rock quarry to give this heroic car its supreme test. Cast your eyes up the face of that cliff. What a drop! 110 feet, and that's as high as an 8-story building. You wouldn't think that even a steel safe could survive that tumble, much less a motor car, but let's find out. Are you ready? Here it comes on its death drop, leaping clear of the ledge and landing with crushing impact in the rocky shale beneath. Oh, but that was over too quickly to see anything. Let's watch it again, in slow motion. Again it takes off, landing with its full weight squarely on its nose. You'd expect it to be crushed like an eggshell, and a lesser car would. Another flip-flop, nearly 2 tons of automobile flung down on its back as though by some mighty hand. No car ever was built to stand up under such terrific abuse. Not even an army tank would be expected to take this punishment. And what does it prove? Just this. The car that can live through such a grueling ordeal is the car you can trust in any emergency. Let's go survey the damage. You naturally expect to find only a heap of wreckage, but, well, judge for yourself. Despite the terrific shock to the body and chassis, the doors open and close easily. There is no structural damage. Indeed, the entire car has survived the plunge with little more than merely superficial injury. The alignment of the body and chassis has not been affected, and the unbroken two-plate windows ride freely in their channels. And the windshields operate with their accustomed ease, indicating that the sturdy steel corner posts have borne up under the fiendish abuse without yielding. Will the car run? I'll say it will. There it goes, under its own power, a real all-around champion.
If the eye could see the flow of the water or air as these streamlined forms move through these fluid mediums, it would observe this behavior: a gentle parting of the fluid at the front end and a smooth, even flow past the bodies, joining again at the rear end, quietly, unperturbed. On the other hand, if forms that are not streamlined are moved through a fluid medium, currents, eddies, whirlpools, or vortices are produced at the sides or rear, or both. In the light of these natural phenomena, then, it is apparent that a perfectly streamlined car would be one whose exterior surface is so shaped that when passing through the fluid medium of the air, it would create a minimum of disturbance in the forms of eddies or partial vacuums tending to produce back pull. An aeronautical engineer recently made the statement that an otherwise perfect airship, which had to carry mudguard, wheels, axles, bumpers, and spare tires, all scaled up in size and fastened on the outside of its hull, would have a top speed of about 6 miles an hour. It would, obviously, never be practical. This had proved that for a car with the engine in the front, the most desirable position for it because of its great weight, as tests and experience had proved, not at the very front end of the car, but directly over the front axle. At the same time, the body engineers saw a chance to realize their fondest dream, to lift the car body off the old-type platform frame and to make the structural members of the body itself become the frame of the car. Now, with a broadside arrangement like this, it was apparent that in this new type car, the rear seat, as well as the front seat, could be cradled between the front and rear axles. For in this body and frame design, it was possible to move the rear seat forward by as much as 20 inches. Let's look again at this diagram of the car, which shows the heavy weight of the engine centered directly over the front axle and balancing it directly over the rear axle, the weight of the luggage, the gasoline tank, and the spare tire. This distribution of weights in the airflow Chrysler is like that in a dumbbell. In the conventional car, the engine rests back of the front axle, concentrating the mass of the car toward the center of the vehicle. It makes the car more like a ball insofar as its weight distribution is concerned. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to oscillate a ball, but how difficult it is to oscillate a dumbbell? The ball sways easily with a quick, short motion. The dumbbell moves much less and much more slowly with the same amount of effort. Well, for a similar reason, the airflow Chrysler is disturbed much less when going over a bump. Here, for example, is what happens when the front wheel hits a bump in a conventional car. The rear end goes down like a teeter-totter. As the front wheels pass over the bump, the rear springs begin to push the rear end up. And when the rear wheels go over the bump, they shoot the rear end up with the cumulative force of a double bump, and the passengers often hit the roof. In the airflow Chrysler, all this useless, tiring motion is avoided because with the scientific weight distribution, when the front wheel hits a bump, the rear end is not affected at all because the pivot point of the teeter board is over the rear axle. Likewise, when the rear wheel hits a bump, the pivot is over the front axle, and there is no front end movement either up or down. We have already shown how the back seat, as well as the front, is cradled between the front and rear axles. an arrangement impossible in the conventional car design without extending the wheelbase to unmanageable lengths. The rear seat just naturally has to be near one end of the teeter-totter, with its passengers bobbing up and down and around the pivotal point back of the front seat. The airflow Chrysler ought to be and is a very safe car to drive. Can you imagine a car so sturdily constructed that its body structure is 40 times more rigid than that of the conventional car? Old-style automobiles employ frames to rest the body on and to give them rigidity and strength. In the new Chrysler, the structural members of the body are the frame. The car is built like a skyscraper, or better yet, like an enclosed truss bridge. The passengers ride in the frame, not on it. Part of it, the strong steel girders, are actually overhead. The Airflow Chrysler, with a floating ride and genuine streamlined design. The more you see of it, the better you will like it, which is always true of any article based on sound, functional design. But you have only seen and heard the story of this newest creation of nature and man working hand in hand and side by side. You must also feel its difference from conventional cars to appreciate the real significance of the expression, fashion by function. Ride in it, drive it, own it, and enjoy the sensation of going forward with Chrysler.